Imagine working hard for every dollar, only to have your own manager steal it from you. One undercover CEO witnessed it happen, and what happened next shocked everyone. Nathan Steele is a name synonymous with success in the restaurant world. He built Taste of Home, a chain that wasn't just fast-growing, it was built on a foundation he fiercely protected, the idea of a fair work culture. Nathan believed happy employees meant happy customers, and treating his staff right wasn't just good ethics, it was good business. But recently, something dark had started to cloud that vision. Quiet murmurs from different locations began reaching headquarters. Whispers of missing cash tips, of servers working harder than ever, only to see their earnings mysteriously shrink. More disturbing than the missing money itself was the fear. Employees felt unsafe reporting it, terrified of backlash. When complaints finally trickled up, the response from regional managers was frustratingly consistent. Just minor accounting errors. Bad counting, simple mistakes. Mistakes happen, yes. But this sounded like more than a few dollars off at the end of shift. This sounded systematic. It sounded like theft. And the idea that his team, the people who were in his company, were being exploited and were too scared to even speak up about it, kept Nathan up at night. He knew he couldn't just trust the reports anymore. He had to see the truth for himself. To step out of the executive office and walk the kitchen floor, not as the CEO, but as someone invisible, someone who could watch and listen without anyone knowing the boss was in the building. His target? A specific location with the most persistent, chilling complaints. He was going undercover. Nathan Steele wasn't just stepping out of his suit. He was shedding an identity. The crisp shirts and polished shoes were replaced by worn jeans, scuffed sneakers, and a plain, unassuming t-shirt. He grew a bit of stubble, ruffled his hair, and looked less like a corporate titan and more like just another guy looking for work. His plan: blend in at the problem location, posing as a new trainee busboy. Invisible, observant. Stepping through the back entrance felt different. The familiar aroma of cooking food was overshadowed by an almost palpable tension. The smiles he received from a few passing staff members felt painted on. Polite, yes, but their eyes held a weariness, a flicker of anxiety that didn't reach their lips. It was like walking into a beautiful facade with something rotten just beneath the surface. Nathan thought to himself, this wasn't the energy I built this company on. Where was the camaraderie? The genuine passion? He quickly noticed the dynamics. There was Sophie, a server, kind-faced with a gentle smile, the kind of employee every restaurant dreams of. But even she seemed to carry a weight, her movements careful, almost hesitant, constantly glancing around as if expecting trouble. And then there was Greg, the manager, brash, loud, his presence dominating the room not with leadership, but with a heavy, controlling air. He barked orders more than gave directions and had a way of making staff flinch just by entering a room. Nathan watched him, a knot forming in his stomach. This was the source of the fear. Nathan thought to himself, okay, it's worse than the report suggested. Much worse. As Nathan blended into the background, clearing plates and refilling drinks, his eyes weren't just on the tasks at hand. They were watching, observing the small, chilling details that painted a picture far darker than any report. He saw the rhythm of a busy shift, tables turning over, cash changing hands, the familiar clinking of coins and rustling of bills finding their way into server-tipped jars. But something wasn't adding up. After peak hours, when the tip jars should have been heavy, brimming with the night's earnings, Nathan noticed they seemed lighter, emptier than they ought to be. It was a subtle observation, easy to dismiss as coincidence, but combined with everything else, it felt like a cold, hard knot tightening in his gut. Where was that money going? It wasn't staying with the staff, Nathan could tell. He watched Sophie. Every time a customer left cash tips on the table, her kind smile would falter just for a second. She'd collect the money, but her eyes would dart nervously across the room, invariably landing on Greg. It was a small, involuntary movement, but to Nathan, it screamed volumes. She was afraid. Afraid of that simple, everyday transaction. And then there were the whispers. Low, hushed conversations between servers in quiet corners or during rare lulls. Did you see how light mine was tonight? Yeah, it feels like half of it just vanished. I can't afford this. But the moment Greg's heavy footsteps approached, the conversations died instantly. Smiles returned, backs straightened, and a strained silence fell over the group. The fear wasn't just about the money. It was about the man taking it. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate, and they were living under a shadow of fear. The tension was a suffocating blanket, woven from missing money and silent threats. Nathan knew he was close to confirming his worst fears. The clock ticked past closing. The last customers had left. The cleaning crew started their quiet work, and the energy in the restaurant dimmed. Nathan, still in his disguise, stayed late, pretending to finish up stray tasks near the front, his eyes subtly tracking Greg. He had a gut feeling tonight was the night the pattern would reveal itself. Greg, the manager, waited until most of the staff had filtered out. He didn't head straight for the office to do paperwork or count the official till. Instead, he went to where the servers had left their individual tip jars and shared tip containers. His movements were casual, almost too casual, a practiced routine. And then Nathan saw it. Not just counting, not organizing. Greg wasn't taking the jars to a secure area for staff to split. He was pulling out a simple, nondescript bag. With swift, practiced motions, he began sweeping the contents of the tip jars. The coins, the crumpled bills, the hard-earned cash Nathan had watched customers place there all night, directly into his bag. Before any staff member could see, before any counting could be done, before a single dollar could be distributed fairly. There it was, clear as day. Not a mistake. Not bad counting. Theft. Cold, calculated theft. Later, as Nathan lingered, making sure Greg was truly gone, he overheard two figures talking in hushed tones near the staff exit. It was Sophie, her voice barely a whisper, thick with exhaustion and fear, talking to another server. I don't know what to do. My rent is due, and it feels like half my tips are just gone every week. I know, it's happening to everyone. Sophie, voice cracking. We're too scared to speak up. Remember what happened to Mark last month? Greg, he cornered me yesterday after I asked where the money went. He said he'd make sure I was fired, told me he'd say I was lying, that no one would believe a server over a manager. He said he'd make sure I never worked in this town again. Nathan realized it wasn't just money. He wasn't just stealing tips. He was stealing their security, their dignity, their voices, and using their fear as his weapon. This ends now. The breaking point had been reached. The tension in the restaurant the next morning was thicker than usual. Greg was moving with cocky confidence, barking orders, seemingly unaware he'd been observed. The staff, still living under the shadow of fear and yesterday's witness theft, moved with a familiar, weary anxiety. Nathan, still dressed in his unassuming disguise, walked onto the floor. He didn't look like a boss. Not yet. He approached Greg, calmly, deliberately, stepping out of the busboy role for the first time. The change in his demeanor was subtle, but undeniable, a core of steel beneath the casual exterior. Greg, I need to ask you something about the tips. Oh, the trainee wants to talk tips now? Greg quips. Look, kid, that's management business. Nothing for you to worry about. Focus on clearing tables. Nathan responds. It is my business. I saw you last night, Greg, sweeping the tip jars into your bag. Before the count. Before the staff split. Greg, laughing dismissively. What are you talking about? That's standard procedure. Company policy. We collect them, process them centrally, keeps things neat. You newbies wouldn't understand. Don't go making up stories, all right? That's a good way to lose your job. Greg takes a step towards Nathan, trying to be intimidating. Nathan stands his ground. Nathan responds. His voice remains calm, but the authority behind it is building. Company policy, you say? Sweeping employees' hard-earned tips into your personal bag before they're even counted? Calling that procedure? Yeah, that's what I said. Nathan reaches into his pocket and pulls out a wallet, opening it deliberately. He pulls out a card, a sleek, official-looking ID. His expression is now completely different, powerful, commanding, and absolutely furious beneath the surface. Then his voice cuts through the room, clear and ringing with authority. Look closely, Greg. I'm Nathan Steele. I built this company. Every brick, every principle, every rule about how we treat our people. And what you just described, what I saw you do, is theft. Greg's eyes widen in disbelief and horror. The staff gasp, some covering their mouths, realization dawning on their faces. The silence in the restaurant was deafening. Greg, his face a mixture of shock and sputtering indignation, found his voice again, but the bluster was gone, replaced by panicked fear. Greg stammering, eyes darting nervously between Nathan and his stunned employee's response. You can't do this. I was just... Nathan cuts him off, his voice cold and unwavering. Don't try to explain or excuse it. I saw what I saw, and I heard what I heard. As of this moment, Greg, you are suspended pending a full investigation. Pack your things. You're no longer in charge here. Security will escort you out. Nathan gestures firmly. Two quiet but large security personnel, who perhaps entered subtly after the reveal, step forward and move towards Greg. Greg looks trapped, defeated, finally complying reluctantly. With Greg being escorted away, the tension in the room began to shift, but the fear lingered in the staff's eyes. They had witnessed the impossible, the seemingly untouchable manager brought down. But what happened now? Nathan turned to face them. His demeanor softened slightly, the hard edge of authority replaced by a resolute calm that invited trust. Listen to me, all of you. What you've endured here, what Greg was doing, it is not, and never will be, acceptable in my company. My priority is your safety and your incredibly hard work being respected and rewarded, as it should be. Effective immediately, there is an open line of communication directly to corporate HR. You can report anything, any concerns, any incidents of disrespect, and especially any issues with tips or pay, completely anonymously. There will be no retaliation. You are protected. There is an anonymous hotline number and an email address that will be posted in the break room this afternoon. Use them. Speak up. Your voices will be heard and acted upon. But Nathan wasn't stopping there. He knew trust had been shattered, and words weren't enough. Justice for the missing money needed to begin immediately. He continues. Starting now, I am personally auditing every tip log, every shift report, every single piece of data I can find in this location's records. We will go back through everything. We will find out exactly how much has been taken and for how long. We will uncover the full extent of this. The fight wasn't over, but showing them that action was swift, that their fear had been seen and validated, was the first crucial step towards rebuilding from the ground up. The repercussions for Greg were just the beginning. For the staff, it was the first glimmer of hope for true change. With the immediate threat removed and the wheels of investigation turning, Nathan knew the most critical step wasn't just about punishing the guilty. It was about healing the damage, about reconnecting with the people who had suffered in silence. Later that day, after the initial shock had subsided, he asked the servers, including a hesitant Sophie, to gather together away from the main floor. Staff are seated, looking uncertain, some still visibly shaken. Nathan sits with them, not across a table authoritatively, but among them. Thank you for being willing to talk with me. I know what you've just been through is a lot, and I saw how you've been living under incredible pressure. I want you to know how deeply sorry I am that this happened under my watch, that anyone in this company felt unsafe. Some nodded slowly, some avoided eye contact. Sophie looked down nervously. Nathan continues. I saw the fear. I heard the whispers. I know many of you were scared to speak up. Sophie, you mentioned something yesterday that really stayed with me. About being too scared. Can you tell me more? If you feel comfortable? Nathan looks gently at Sophie. All eyes turn to her. Sophie hesitates, wringing her hands, looking like she wants to speak but is terrified. Then with a very quiet voice, trembling slightly, she speaks. It's just, when I first started here, I loved it. Truly. The customers were great. Finding good tips felt amazing, like my hard work paid off. There was a real sense of teamwork. But then, after Greg took over, things changed. Slowly at first, tips started disappearing. Just a few dollars here, then more. When people asked questions, he'd brush it off, say they miscounted. And if anyone pushed it, he'd find ways to make their shifts harder. Less hours, worse sections. He made it clear that questioning him had consequences. By the end, Sophie's voice breaks slightly. After what happened to a few people who tried to go to regional managers, we gave up. We were too scared. He told me, specifically, that if I ever accused him again, he'd say I was lying, he'd get me fired, put notes in my file, so I'd never get another job. He made us feel like our word meant nothing, like we were powerless. The confession hung in the air, the depth of the intimidation, the systematic breaking of their spirit. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the silencing of their voices, the stripping away of their dignity. Nathan listened, his heart aching, his resolve hardening further. Nathan reaches out, placing a reassuring hand on Sophie's shoulder. She looks up at him cautiously. "Thank you, Sophie. Thank you for being brave enough to tell me. To tell all of us. What all you went through is unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. No employee, no matter their job, should ever be made to feel powerless or fear doing what is right. Ever. And certainly not here. Not in my company. That ends today. You're not powerless. Your words matter. Your hard work matters. And most importantly, you matter. My focus now is making this right. For every dollar stolen, yes. But also for every moment of fear you endured. You will never have to be scared to speak up again. Not here. Not ever." A sense of a heavy weight lifted from the room. Staff look at each other, cautiously hopeful smiles appearing on some faces. Sophie looks at Nathan, tears still on her face, but a flicker of relief and gratitude in her eyes. The conversation marked the beginning of healing, a promise whispered in the aftermath of betrayal. A promise from the top that the foundation of trust would be rebuilt stronger than before. The investigation Nathan promised was swift and thorough. The evidence was undeniable, the pattern of theft stretching back months. Greg's company policy was nothing but a lie to cover his own greed. The consequence was definitive. Greg was officially terminated, his abuse of power and betrayal of trust ending his career with the company. Justice, for him, was delivered swiftly. But the real change wasn't just about removing the bad. It was about cultivating the good, about rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. Nathan personally oversaw the search for a new manager, settling on someone known for their integrity, their support for their staff, and their genuine passion for the restaurant's fair work culture. The atmosphere in the restaurant began to transform. The forced smiles faded, replaced by genuine laughter and camaraderie. The fear dissipated, replaced by a cautious but growing sense of security. Seeing them, truly happy again, supporting each other, that was the real payoff. To ensure tip security and transparency, Nathan implemented new, robust systems across the chain, starting with this location. Digital tip-out tracking, visible to both staff and management, removed the possibility of cash disappearing unnoticed. And a mandatory end-of-shift group count ensured that all tips were accounted for, together, before distribution. And the most significant step towards making things right? Nathan didn't just fix the future. He worked to rectify the past. After the audit, the full amount of the stolen tips was calculated. To make amends for the financial loss and acknowledge the hardship and fear they had endured, staff who had been cheated were issued significant bonuses, compensating them for what Greg had taken. It was more than just money. It was a validation of their truth, a tangible sign that their CEO had seen their suffering and was committed to making them whole. Walking through that restaurant now feels different. It feels like my company again. Nathan thought, a place where people are valued, where hard work is honored, and where everyone feels safe. This story isn't just about catching a thief. It's a powerful reminder that the strength of any business, any team, isn't found solely in its profits or its rules. It's built by protecting the people who trust you the most. Because when you stand up for your team, when you listen to their whispers and fight for their dignity, you build something that lasts far beyond profits. You build something real.